O labing makagagahom nga amay namon sa langit, mahinuklugon nga laon nga tagtugas ang langit, hangin, kalayo, tubig kag duta. Tanda ining imong timawa, kabay ining pag-ampo, magadulot sa amon sang kabuhi nga himaya. Salamat sa mga bugay nga imo ginpaambit sa amon. Salamat sa kabuhi nga ginadulot mo sa amon nga himpit. Salamat sa maayo nga panahon kag ilabi na gid sang imo katutom sa amon. Bendisyone ang imo katawhan. Bendisyone ang ila mga palangabuhian. Bendisyone ang mga panggas sa amon mga talamnan. Bendisyone ang ilang nga paglugayawan sa iban nga kapungsuran. Kabay makalabot sila nga walay sablag sa ila pagapadulungan. Kag ila binagid, bendisyone ining isla sang Negros nga amon natawhan. Kinahalad namon ang ining pag-ampo para sa imo kadayawan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to VCon 2 of the Viva XCon, celebrating its 30 years. And as part of our celebration for the National Arts Month, we continue to bring you different topics in our virtual conference. So before we start, I would just like to welcome everyone for today's session. And before we start, I would like to, for our newcomers and our new audience, we would like to, Viva XCon actually is a Visayas-wide biennial which started in Bacolod City in 1990. And this includes the islands of Negros, Cebu, Panay, Samar, Leyte, Bohol, Guimaras, Siquijor, and all of the islands in the Visayan region of the Philippines. Viva XCon is a local initiative towards the promotion and strengthening of cooperation among visual art groups in the Visayan region and around the world. It has become an effective artist-centered blueprint with which other like initiatives have been patterned after. It is being adapted by the National Commission for Culture and the Arts as the basis for local initiatives in the formation of the regional art festivals in Mindanao and Luzon. It is a continuing goal of Viva ExCon to celebrate Visayan art by bridging the islands of the Visayas so as to provide a venue to facilitate dialogues, interaction, networking, and cultural exchanges, thus addressing fundamental and relevant issues among visual art communities and related stakeholders. Having accomplished such goals in the 30 years of its existence, it now looks towards the future in ways that can best contribute to the development of the communities it serves. Given our reality of the 2020 pandemic and extending this year, 2021, the limitation imposed by necessary precautionary measures and the impact of such to the mindset of artists and artist groups, Viva ExCon 2020-2021 has recalibrated the festival design to engage creative spirits in a virtual dynamics that is interactive, online, and will bring together the creative community so as to rise to the challenge of the times. Our objectives is to empower local art practices to be relevant to the challenges of the changing times, to explore opportunities for collaboration and forging of resources among sectors of the community, to respond to art-related issues proactively, and to design a preferred future for the artist community. This is brought to you by Viva ExCon Organization Incorporated. It is a non-stock, non-profit initiative solely organized to service the needs of the biennial and other projects, art projects in the different localities in the Visayas. It was formalized in 2014 when Bacolod City hosted Viva ExCon 13. Um, To date, the organization continues to support host provinces to provide assistance in management and locally organizing events such as fundraising activities to support the nurture of artists. The intention is meeting the basic requirements for the festival while keeping the local flavor and independence of each biennial and generally to keep to the initial raison d'etre of Viva ExCon. So today, um, I would like to thank you for our resource. Thank you, the resource persons, for today. And today's session is about Kalibutan, the world in mind. It is actually a seminar on a possible exhibition, Node 2, artists explore intimacies and communities of practices. We will feature Region 6, headed by our regional curators, Guinevere Decena and Libby Limoso, with artists Perry Alhel, Denley Chavez, ICANN Creatives, AR Sculptura, Farida Cabayao, Ron Espinosa, and TM Malones. The zone recalibrate. Um, the zone actually means next. No, this is our theme for this biennial. Change slide, please. To introduce the first speaker for our seminar on a possible exhibition, Guinevere Decena hails from Bacolod City, Philippines. After graduating cum laude and a civil service awardee at the College of Fine Arts in La Consolacion College, Bacolod in 2009. Gwen started to practice art with communities through residency grants, both local and overseas, including the IILM Art Residency, New Delhi, India in 2015, Project Space Pilipinas, Lukban in 2014 with our friend Leslie de Chavez, and the Southeast Asia Artist Group Exchange in Yogyakarta and Malaysia in 2013. She was the recipient of the Glow Art Residency grant in Belgium last 2016, a finalist of the Philippine Artist Residency Program in Paris in 2012, and the Philippines representative for Nakan Contemporary Art Space in Spain back in 2009. Her multidisciplinary practice merges installation and painting, curiously presenting the in-betweens, interconnections, and the possibilities we can find all around us. She organized a group exhibit, Delayed Gratification, held at the Home Art Trans Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia in 2015. She was a co-organizer of Impartial Origins, a satellite group exhibit, and a program involving visiting artists during the Viva XCon 2014, which included artists from the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Gwen is currently the organizer of Art Satellite, an artist initiative that organizes and designs creative programs such as art exchanges, collaborations, and exhibitions in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental. She is the organizer of AID, Artist Initiated Interviews and Discussions, which is an online platform that features artists, projects, and initiatives through interviews and discussion. Please welcome Ms. Gwen Vicena.
Hello, Manny. Thank you, Manny. Good morning. Mic check. Can you hear me? Okay. So, can I have Perry Argel slide? Thank you. I have with me here in the studio Mr. Perry Argel himself.
Hello.
Let me just read his bio over here. Perry Argel makes obsolete the very thought of obsolete. He describes himself as a functioning organism, clearing and fixing the space around him to reveal the purity of nature. In every assemblage, Argel presents different specimens linked to society's overall concept of what is and is no longer useful. His exhibitions include Anything in Berlin, Business of Fools in Babe, Germany, and The Ritual of Daily Living in the Cultural Center of the Philippines. His body of works is packed with interactive public art installations and eco-didactic structures. His tendency to create spontaneously with spaces, be they museums or unknown urban streets, has made documenting his past works very challenging. Nevertheless, his artistry remains unaverted. He was recently featured during the Art Fair Philippines in the late Makati City last 2020. So about Perry Argel. As a child, Argel would watch in awesome wonder how seeds or cuttings grow and transform to bear colorful flowers and fruits, mainly from a garden his mother tended. It was then that my sense of responsibility toward maintaining the balance of things around me prompted an inner desire to create, to let beauty flow. This paved way for his ritual of daily living philosophy and art practice. Argel's contribution for Kalibutan, titled Ilistaran or Dwelling Place, concentrates on the artist's house as an intertwined idea of form and space. The artist's abode is intricately built with found objects that have been collected over decades of mindful travels and natural encounters. Ilistaran attempts to emphasize the direct causal connecting principle of Argel's creativism with nature. It probes into the reciprocity of how he lives, where he lives, examining the artist's house, including all the elements within it as one inseparable form of art, a synthesis of being and doing. So, good morning,
Morning.
Mr. Perry. Let me proceed with question number one. The questions were prepared by our head curator, Mr. Patrick Flores. And these are also the same questions we have answered as regional curators before. So this time we will be hearing from the artists themselves, their take on Kalibutan, the world in mind as a theme, and how they have been working on it with their art form. For question number one, can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? With this as entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it. Next slide, please.
Okay, good morning. Uh, I'm starting my day with encountering of things like exploring, no? What I have, what I've seen, and at least first is I have to fix everything. So by cleaning and yeah, putting it on proper or nice way. No? So whatever things I encountered, there I start my way of developing it, the whole process. No, so it connects on every form in what you encountered, and everything in the surroundings is I think gathered by some, not only me or not only in the family, but even in the road, in the streets. If you have to fix it, then you can encounter so many things that nobody cares, and then what we have to think of is how we can make something out of it, you know? Because yeah, and it you can also use it as a conversation to many, not because if you use it by the art form, then it reacts on a wide,
Right.
okay.
Actually, my dog is trying to sit on Ferrier's lap. So very
It's
good
okay.
for not being distracted. So partially already touched on answers that would still be fit for question number two. Question number two is, how do you respond as an artist to the proposition of kalibutan the world in mind? How does that framework resonate with your interest as an artist in general and as an artist who has links with the Visayas? So it's still the same what you said earlier, that everything is you take natural encounters and interconnectedness.
Yeah, because there's no limit on
Yeah.
it now when you use everything that is comes from unknown.
Mhm.
No, so you don't know. Also, you also don't know what, but by exploring and composing it,
Mhm.
then it defines openness. Not that you have the intention of what you have to do, but you did. Yeah, it's just the creator is the one who pushes it into. No?
So next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is a picture of, where is this place in
This is in Boracay. Yeah, it's my
how many
playground.
years did you stay in Boracay?
It's almost 17 years now, but I keep on going also exploring places. So, but we stayed there for more than 17 years.
Next slide, please. So this is part of what we talked about before. So during our previous interview in his house, he said that the Visayas is not isolated. There is no real boundary. Everywhere is still just this world. In a way, everything is collaborating. In fact, that is the essence of what I do. I am collaborating with the environment. I pick things up from the shore, or the Visayas. These are objects with no capacity to know the concept of boundaries. They arrive here despite territorial markings and areas of responsibility, which are man-made. So the ocean, in a way, connects us. I remember you talked about, for example, picking up lighters or certain trash, and then you would wonder which part of the world it came from before arriving on that shore. Next slide, please. So these are again examples of what Perry Argel would do. And he initially said that I did not really create them, somebody else did. What I really do is gather and assemble them. I collaborate. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah,
Was this also ritualistic how you
Yeah,
did it
actually,
back
this is
then?
really ritual because the way I started, I just walk on the beach, no, on the shore, and no, there's no plan on it, no. The first thing, if you encounter a one thing and it attracts you, then it's there. You decide if you take it up and start with it. And that part, that first object, it starts with the story that while you're going, they it will find a connection on another thing, no. So slowly in the process, you develop, but without thinking, without any this plan, because encountering of things is just moment and places, no, the moment. Then what the thing is you have to be in a ritual way and like weaving, no.
So I guess trying to go back to the theme Kalibutan, the world in mind, how it is both it both means the mind and the world that we are living in, or reality as we know it. So I guess this practice, this ritualistic practice of um, really immersing yourself with your environment and taking in deep consideration all the things, objects that you encounter. It also reflects how participatory you are with
Yeah, because
the objects of society.
no,
You are a
yeah.
participant.
Also it's in the environment also.
Yeah.
In a day you will encounter friends or people, no. Then it's all the interaction there, no. But
Yeah, and,
with the object, then it's easy to communicate. No?
yes.
There is that.
And we talked before about example this very popular advocacy these days of the environment's critical state, and people stress out about garbage and trash, and Perrier Hell was suggesting that maybe if we stop looking at waste as something very negative, maybe we won't respond to it in a very stressful way, like how he does with his practice. Um, the practice of collecting trash is not something necessarily ordered.
Yeah, if you
like
think
you
of
have
the
to clean this, but it's
Yeah.
more like
Playing,
happily
no.
and playfully doing this. So you can accomplish the same task, but in a very light-hearted manner. It's really
I will add to that, no. Because like from our place, our home, from the kitchen, if we start doing things, doing our waste or exists a consumer and consumers thing that you have to throw. Then if you start putting it into an object or whatever you do to preserve it, then I think it can create and it will gives you the development also of the idea how you can do. So you can slowly develop a form that we can create something out of it.
And yeah, like also before we talked about people or mankind as consumers, that if you're not mindful, you are like a virus who just consumes and consumes from the world, not knowing that you are destroying it. So it's exactly how a virus grows. So for our next question, how did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? What was the process and method involved in your research and reflection? Can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan? Actually, originally, it used to be more collaborative, interactive, and we considered putting it in a public space.
So that's why this what we already started, what we're doing in our environment. It's already the space that we preparing since before. And for us now, it's just I think we just let somebody almost know that there is a place where we can open up this time and show, because it's already there since before. And everywhere I go, I put a center. I play in a place and develop a center for consciousness.
So for Periarhel, next slide please. He will be presenting Ilistaran. Ilistaran means dwelling place. So dwelling place concentrates on the artist's house as an intertwined idea of form and space. The artist's abode is intricately built with found objects that have been collected over decades of mindful travels and natural encounters. Ilistaran attempts to emphasize the direct connecting principle of our house creativism with nature. So again, we are, as we have already described, this is like an art site, almost like an artifact, a collection of not necessarily just decorative objects. They are functional. They
Actually,
are
it's our
immersive.
home. No, it's because that I practice on this, and the space is only a space for everything. There is just an accessory, and things that you do is just for like a storehouse, yeah. But we take care of it to create corners that fits everything you do, So every time it changes, and you're enjoying it, doing it, You're enjoying. So yeah, and also we're extending, like for so many things already, we're extending spaces that we install there. And yeah, since until now, we cannot see space like an extension space that is fixed. We're always
So it's very it's interventional in nature. So every day you intervene with how everything is set up and is utilized and how it looks and is arranged. Next slide, please. So before that was the picture of the balcony, and this one is on the ground floor. It is what you'll see when you first enter his house.
Like mostly storage things, It's a flat. Yeah, like things that like a raw material for me for the next project. Because there is that Coca-Cola bottle from the
yes,
some of
as
my
you can see that some of the objects that you collected are still waiting for their
the bottles. I put all the plastic things there inside, so you can use it later, like a hollow blocks or whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, using it now.
Next slide, please. Okay, and this is like how do you say it? Dirty kitchen?
Dirty kitchen in the food.
So they said that they have a kitchen with actual stoves and all, but they still prefer to cook by fire and wood.
Yeah, in rice, it's good to cook it with food, with wood. So I put up this for my girlfriend.
Girlfriend. Next slide, please. And this is Palahuayan. It's like a resting place, but as you can see, that is a painting over there. And it is also where he paints and creates, I guess.
Yeah. This is a tulugan, like a sleeping area also, and visitors area.
Yes, this is where we drink coffee all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you want to close this? For me, I think it's very inspiring because when you say kalibutan, you can also like say the entire universe, right? So when you talk about the universe, it has components like the components that make up the sun, the stars, all these gaseous materials. They are also the things that make up planets and that make up living entities, ultimately human beings like us. And then the brain emerged, and then the brain is now thinking about itself, thinking about how it's thinking, looking, it's like, so like what Carl Sagan, an astronomer, a favorite scientist of mine, said that the consciousness is actually a way of the universe to look into itself. So the moment we're thinking about the universe, it is like a step of the universe that is slowly opening its eyes and thinking about itself already. So as with your artwork as a dweller and in your dwelling place, the interaction is continuous.
Yeah.
And how you live is actually a part of the entire artwork. So would you like to add more to like an example with your family also living with you there?
Yeah, all also my grandchildren already, and we're all the house is
Two
full
newborns.
also, no? But it's so a happy house, a happy
Yeah.
home with my sisters.
Maybe
there.
that's why the energy and vibration there is so light and so
Yeah, but if you really, take care of it, no. Yes, it's so like things, so many things that it's really if you don't take care of it, then it crumbles, and it's not good to see, and it affects you also. No? So that's the ritual. You have to compose every time. You have to compose it. Take the dust and take the leaves or compose it. That's it. No.
Okay, so for our closing, I that was a very insightful message from Perry Arnel. Maybe you would like to invite everyone to visit you.
Yeah, if you have time, no, and if you are here, work here, then you can just connect.
Yes,
And
please
every
message
time
Viva.
it's open, no, and we can just set a date for it.
Yes. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank God for this opportunity. No?
Okay. So for wait. So for our next artist, let me just read her bio. I'm really excited to introduce to you this very young lady who is now being a superwoman trying to accomplish this project. She's Dani Chavez. Dani Chavez focuses on the extended range of stories through writing, acting, and filmmaking. She took up Bachelor of Arts, major in communications in the University of St. LaSalle. Her creations have been screened in film festivals locally and overseas, including Sinica Hirop, Cine Negrense, Negros Island Film Fest. 28th Gawad CCP para sa alternatibong pelikula at video. And how do you say this? Visaya? Media Festival, San Antonio, Texas. Chavez's filmography accounts for concepts revolving around society's impact on the molding of the mind, how killers are made, human trafficking, acute depression, domestic abuse, coping with the loss of loved ones, and so on. This can be glimpsed in her short films Hangin, Dalia Dalit Lang, Lagaw Lagaw, Suba Sang Malogo, Release, and Killer's Eye. This artistic tendency to empathize with victims of unfortunate circumstance is reflected too in Chavez's ventures beyond the practice of film. She spearheads She Her I Project, an initiative which aims to mitigate the effects of violence against women in Bacolod City. Chavez proposes for the Kalibutan exhibition a short film titled Pagbutwa Halin sa Kaidalman, or Rise from the Dead. Here she explores consciousness-raising plots where viewers and actors participate in reciprocating worlds. The film is rooted in the context of legends, how legends are formed and how the collective psyche might have been formed by legends. It considers specifically the drowning, rising, and transformational elements of the legend of Siete Picados, the group of 7 islets between Panay and Negros. Next slide.
Hi. Good
So
morning.
Hi, Danli.
Hi, Miss Gwen.
How are you? Did you sleep?
Yes, I got
Okay.
to get some sleep.
Okay. So I will proceed right away with the first question so you can start answering. Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? With this as entry point then, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Dani. I am born and raised here in Bacolod, in Negros Occidental. Can we, next slide, please? And I think I can't talk about my art practice without mentioning my training from Bacolod Workshops, which is now Bacolod Workshops, under Sir Manny Montalibano and Sir Gabby Fernandez, and then Sir Jack Trino for acting. And then being an AB communication graduate, which I had Miss Jade Donzon as my mentor. Next slide, please. So here are a few examples of short films which have been, I'm grateful enough to have them screened, some in local festivals, and some nationally and some internationally, and some of them have also garnered um, awards. Next slide, please. And here is for acting. That photo is from Cine Negrense, 2017. Next slide, please. So, my response to Miss Gwen's proposition, which basically how like legends and myths form like our psyche, is basically summed up in this study by Kathleen Bagan, What Happened to Heroines in Folk Tales. Basically, it's just an explanation that all forms of media, even those folklore materials and legends and myths, are recreated by many persons and spread by many members of society. And basically, yeah, it does form uh, our collective consciousness. So, next slide, please. Which is this is what was given to me, the Legend of Siete Pecados, and I believe this is yeah. So this is the legend where um, of the 7 islands of Panay that connects Panay and Negros. I believe. Okay,
It's okay, you
next.
don't have to.
Okay.
have to-
Okay. Okay. So next slide. So how the concept came about, I just broke it down into different themes and different yeah. So first is the seven sisters being called defiant, sinners and rebels, and they were hated by their community. The second is confinement. They were confined because society hated them. And the next slide, please. We have the escape, the drowning, which was the punishment for escaping. And then we have the rebirth. The death of the seven sisters brought about the 7 islands. And then next slide, please. So, how I did my research was I looked through Philippine history, and basically there are many examples of women who had to go against the grain, and labeled example the infirm Madonna, which you see in the slide. Uh, Rosario Villarreal, she was called the infirm Madonna, but basically what she did was she had to protect herself against assault. This was back in the Spanish colonization period. So there are very many accounts of that. So ano siyang direction you're gonna take, or that is the direction that I'm taking.
Okay. So
Next.
Denley is actually already talking about the question number 2 on how she is responding as an artist to Kalibutan, the world in mind. So she's showing you how, as a filmmaker, how she puts the elements that she has taken from the legend and how to incorporate it in a way that not necessarily kind of retails I mean just tells you another version of the entire legend. She's creating a totally different take on it, and although she's taking a very she's real, right? Rosario Villarreal.
Yes, she is a
Yeah,
very real
she's a
person.
real. So this real character still, she took it. She took this character and still in the context of um, legend making and myth busting. How she's already trying to play with that um, crossing of real and not real, like how people tend to before take legends as facts, and this time we take legends as an element of storytelling. Okay, so continue then.
So I believe this is my last slide.
Mm.
Next, please.
Next slide.
Okay. So basically, to sum up, um, the the concept I'm working on and with response and how I came about. This is basically the conclusion, like sin and cultural condemnation. And I looked down, again with calling everyone rebels and calling people sinners. It is actually a first instinct to difficulty and distress, a compensation for what is lacking in our psyche, and a reaction to unmet needs. So this does not justify acts of cruelty in any way, but rather I think it encourages a form of understanding that we have a very flawed society, and I think there shouldn't be any room for condemnation. And so yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so do we still have time to um, can you talk about beyond the plot and the story and how you are playing with the context? Tell us on the circus that's going on with how you're preparing all this. A filmmaker in the pandemic time. How is the scene? How easy? What is easy and what is difficult for you?
Well, right now it's definitely a challenge because, you have to follow COVID protocols and also ensure the
Mm,
safety of everyone. So, example, adjust like this. We were doing things virtually as much as we can, and basically, I think it's a good challenge. I think in one way or another, it's also teaching me to be more efficient and to be more like careful with people's time and resources. So
mm,
yeah, right now we are currently building the set,
mm,
and we are meeting with the actors in a little while
mm.
after this. So
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so also trying to touch the sorry, how the materiality of the film is coinciding with the theme Kalibutan, the world in mind. It is, I guess, how we perceive reality. Like example, when you take something and then it is not resonated in a physical form or in the actual physical space, then it is ultimately a figment of your imagination. It is just like created within your mind. It is not kalibutan as outside, but just kalibutan that's inside. So this kind of play of like example, an audience looking into the film and the film reflecting circumstances of the audience. It is also reciprocating in a way, and um, it is like it is also very it emphasizes also your interest with like how a killer is made, like your interest on how the mind is formed and how the outside things are also forming the mind. So and film is a very it is for the pandemic time a very useful tool because everybody could just open it and watch it, and they could enter this entirely new world that you created for them. But at the same time, in creating that film, you have to actually be in a space, create all these things.
Yeah.
So I'm congratulating you for doing a very marvelous job. I know it's very difficult, and for your team, wow, it's I'm very excited for you. And um, are we supposed to sell tickets?
I actually have I don't know yet. Maybe we could talk about it.
Showing nationwide, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, would you like? How would you like to post this then?
I think basically I just wanted to say that the team, everyone, all areas of production are putting as much like effort as they can to this project in spite of the pandemic. So I don't think I should take this like credit to my own, but also give it to them. So yeah. Thank you
Okay,
for the opportunity, Miss Gwen.
congratulations again. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so let me now introduce my fellow regional curator from Region 6. His name is Libby Limoso. He is a Filipino visual artist and educator. His interest in local language, place, identity, memory, and spirituality led him to work on documenting and visualizing the oral tradition of Panay mythology, making the oral visual and the absent present. He finished Bachelor of Fine Arts painting at UP Diliman in 2001 and was a recipient of the Dominador Castañeda Best Thesis Award. In 2010, he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania School of Design with a certificate in time-based and interactive media and a master's degree in fine arts as a Ford Foundation International Fellow. His teaching experience include UP College of Fine Arts in Diliman and Central Philippine University Digital Media and Interactive Arts in Iloilo. He was head he was head of the University of San Agustin Iloilo Fine Arts program from 2014 to 2017. Libby participated in the past Viva XCon exhibits, Turns in Form for Viva XCon Iloilo 2016 and Conjunctions of Meaning and Place in Rojas Viva 2018. In 2019, he joined the International Society of Education through Art 2019 World Congress at the University of British Columbia, Canada. He got an artist residency from the University of Regina, Faculty of Media, Art and Performance, and had a lecture at the University of Manitoba School of Art. This year, he mounted ang Darangan sa Sakayan nga Bulawan for the Dinagyang Arts Festival. Obra. He is currently working on a video documentations about Babaylan tradition in Iloilo and full-length performances of current Sugidanon master chants. Curious. Good morning, Libby. Are you
Good
there?
morning, everyone. Thank you
Unmute
very
myself
much,
now.
Gwen, for introduction. And I am here to present to you the projects from Western Visayas Panay Island Group. Um, are we ready for the slides, please? The introduction, please. Do we have introduction slides? Okay, thank you. AR Sculptura is a design and planning firm based here in Haro, Iloilo City, led by couple Joseph Carl Albert Campliega and Margaret Albacete Campliega, who are licensed interior designer and architect respectively. They both earned their BS in architecture degrees from University of San Agustin, Iloilo. Albert's interior design degree came from La Consolacion College, Bacolod. The team's most familiar work to the Ilonggos are the mural sculptures at the Iloilo Provincial Capitol grounds installed in 2019. AR Sculptura is currently focused on developing designs and enhancing spaces that seek to promote and highlight local culture and identity. They are particularly attracted to forms and patterns from pre-colonial Philippines. They have been commissioned both by private individuals and local government units in Panay Island to create figure sculptures, paintings, and master plans for various scales. The team is working on complementary project with ICANN Creatives about the kalibutan of the Panay Island indigenous people. They propose to assemble a retablo-like installation of selected Panay mythology icons, designed with patterns inspired from the traditional talibong blades and pandabuk embroidery of the Panay Bukidnon. Next slide, please. For ICANN and Farida's group. Okay, thank you. ICANN Creatives is a multidisciplinary group based in Rojas City, Capiz. It is run by individuals with diverse backgrounds ranging from education, nursing, communications, and design. The members represent the new generation of digital natives, online gamers, and cosplayers who are interested to work on local identity and culture. Inspired by their experiences in 2018 Viva XCon Capiz, founding members Ina Shane Martinez and Maru Alayon spearheaded various initiatives such as Lagaw 2020, the GOSO online talent stream, and Dihon webinar series. Icon Creatives advocates for the awareness, preservation, and advancement of the arts and culture, cultivating the local art environment. The members Camille Abejon, Maru Alayon, Hazel Ann Figueredo, Ina Shane Martinez, John Jerwin Roque organize and initiate events and activities anchored in arts and culture. While their main focus is visual arts, the group is also engaged in various forms such as dance, music, poetry, drama, and literature to offer various avenues for creativity in the local scene. In 2020, they partnered with the Capiz Provincial Tourism, Culture, and Arts Office to launch Tigbalio, their initial Sugudanon mythology-inspired cosplay for event for the Goso online talent stream. For Viva XCon, ICANN Creatives works on on a complementary project with AR Sculptura. The group hosts a cosplay inspired by digital gaming characters from the Sugudanon, the epic mythology of Panay Island. The online events will unfold and reveal through selected Sugudanon characters the Dinunan or the pre-colonial worlds of Panay Island indigenous people. A kalibutan loved by some but yet to be discovered by many. Next slide for Ron, TM, and Farida. Ron Espinosa, Farida Caballo, and Tia Malones. Ron Espinosa, Farida Caballo, and Tia Malones are artists from the province and city of Iloilo with backgrounds and interests in performance, sound, and moving images. The trio is working together for the first time for Viva Axon, and Ron is a registered interior designer who finished his bachelor's degree in interior design at the University of San Agustin, where he is an active member of the USA Little Theater. Farida is a classical concert violinist who graduated from the University of the Philippines in the Visayas with a degree in history and completed her master's in language and literature from De La Salle University. Tia Malones is a photographer, cinematographer, and independent film director. He finished his diploma degree in filmmaking at the International Academy of Film Television in Cebu. Studied BSc Marketing at Central Philippine University and finished his master's degree at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. The group assembled to work on a documentary on built heritage in Western Visayas. A source of inspiration and concern are the surviving or decaying industrial, residential, and commercial heritage structures in the different districts of Iloilo City. The work touches on topics of wealth, influence, labor, and migration. Themes of place, identity, and memory are explored in this work about haciendas, mansions, and commercial centers. The project deals with sensitive experience of historic colonialism and cultural imperialism through architecture in Panay and Negros Occidental. So that will be the projects for Western Visayas, and we will proceed with our talk with AR Sculptura. Welcome, Margaret and um, Carl Arbet. Let me prepare and share you the screen for AR Sculptura. Yes. Hello. Can I share the screen now? I have trouble with sharing screen. Um, Ida, can you please assist? I'm trying to share screen. Okay, thank you. Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked? Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? With this as entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it.
I was born and raised here in Iloilo, and coming from a family of artists, I grew my own passion towards the arts. I was not really vocal. I was very reserved, but I find myself always consumed with my imagination. I have been very fond of doing sketches and drawings even at the age of 3, and when I found myself deeply fascinated with surgical books of my dad, so fascinated with the details of the human anatomy and gesture that I spent most of my time sketching the human body. I was also into cartoons and comics since I was young, and till now I still do collect books as reference. Born in the 80s, I was amazed with the correctness of the proportion and details of cartoons during the time. Ninja Turtles, who were named after the Renaissance artists, also had a huge influence to my artistic reference. That was, I guess, that time that I began to discover architecture alongside with sculptural arts, which was very popular during the Renaissance. Automatically, the Renaissance artists became my adopted parents as I look up to them as my role model and lifetime inspiration. So here I am now doing architecture, interior design, sculpture, painting, and illustration.
Born and raised in Iloilo City, I started my passion with the arts when I was young. I was into portraiture and still life then. My parents were very supportive of my craft, enrolled me in art classes, and then, eventually, I took up and graduated architecture in the University of San Agustin. Partly because it is my dream to be my father's ally in construction because he is a civil engineer. Not being able to seriously continue my craft in visual arts, later when I shifted my focus towards my professions, the passion in me was later rekindled when I met my now husband, Chavez, and together we established AR Sculptura. This stands for Architect Sculptura, or where AR means Architecture Revolution, because we have a desire to revolutionize architecture by integrating visual arts and culture. Formally established just last year, we have been religiously dedicated towards the fulfillment of our objectives. Fortunately, the first one is to promote Philippine cultural identity through tangible arts and architecture. This fueled the desire to learn more about the wonderful pre-colonial Visayan beliefs and traditions. Favorite examples which we find deeply relevant to arts and architecture are the batik of Pintados and the tubok designs of Panay Bukidnon, to name a few. For us, these patterns, apart from being remnants of the earliest forms of our past, are excellent proofs that our ancestors have been practicing quality arts and values aesthetics in as much as we do today, in as early as several centuries ago. And in order to further promote our culture, we are always driven with the initiative to integrate these indigenous patterns and, whenever applicable, the process itself into our works. We wanted our art to make a lasting impact through large-scale, tangible artworks and spaces, so people not only see through it, but most importantly, interact with it and with each other. So what we do is we design and construct spaces. We fabricate furniture, fixtures, upcycle waste materials, and the like using pre-colonial Filipino motifs, so that our final outputs are functional pieces or structures, and that is the contemporary aspect of our art.
Through our efforts and initiative, the history, culture, and traditions are made more recognizable and distinct from other Asian countries. So foreigners need not ask anymore about our identity as Filipinos. A sense of pride and place would be felt by every local, and this is a kind of place we have been dreaming of.
In addition to these, collaborative projects with local architects led us to create cultural landmark pieces portraying the way of life and valued heritage of a locality. Examples are the Panay Science and Paranudrion at the Iloilo Provincial Capital Grounds, the Mangunguma family in San Lorenzo, Guimaras, the Visayan spotted deer on top of the municipal building of Tapas Capiz, along with its old age scroll marker, and small-scale sculptures such as the Dinagyang warrior tokens for the Philippine National Police Region 6. Actually, most of the times we're tapped to do pieces that eventually become part of the architectural and urban landscapes for both private and public spaces. As monument builders, we install our artworks on strategic locations, accessible to a good number of audience, which is for us a privilege to create a lasting impact to community, physically and subconsciously. Hopefully, through our own way, we can achieve more public consciousness and worldwide appreciation towards the richness and vastness of Visayas culture. Just recently, we have engaged ourselves with an artist group we call Sanad. As to the current art scene, we are at this point not very familiar yet with how it is like to really exhibit in galleries and be part of an art group. In fact, we allotted a small art space for random exhibitions of our works, purposefully to accommodate large sculptures about pintados, the characters and creatures of Visayan myths as told in the Suligan epic, some paintings depicting the way of life of the Panay Bukidnon, and of course to house the regular group exhibitions of our newly established artist group. Although the art scene we are familiar and involved with is more geared towards urban design and architecture, just like any art forms, ours were constantly challenged because of the considerations on aesthetics, durability, functionality, and of course, affordability. Fortunately, we have awesome clients who are just as proud of their Filipino cultural identity, who are confident enough that our pre-colonial concept can result to a truly sophisticated standout masterpiece. So these are a few examples of ongoing residential projects where our batik, labid, tubok, and similar local patterns are proudly displayed.
How do you respond as an artist to the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind? How does that framework resonate with your interests as an artist in general and as an artist who has links with the Visayas.
As promoters of local culture, the kalibutan is a very interesting and a timely subject matter. We see it as swiftly changing, and what can happen next is actually unfathomable. That is a big lesson learned from this whole pandemic experience. Having been fascinated with our intangible culture, most especially the highly regarded oral traditions chanted by Panay Bukidnon in an archaic language, we gladly responded to the proposition with Sugidanon as a concept in mind. It thrills us the most because it is an oral tradition, which thankfully had been documented before it completely vanishes, if not to the priceless efforts of our culture bearers and scholars who published reference materials about this. Learning about the stories makes us wonder our imagination about supernatural beings that defeated huge creatures and surpassed impossible challenges. Indeed, a truly inspiring and much needed diversion from the hard reality we're facing nowadays. As designers and planners, we're also constantly challenged to innovate the physical world. We have the role to introduce efficient developments satisfying the so-called firmitas, utilitas, and venustas, or strength, function, and aesthetics as the basic principles. In our end, the question is how to translate the intangible to tangible for the world to connect with. How do we execute things in the most sustainable and effective manner? This proposition made us realize the interconnection of kalibutan in a micro and macro scale, wherein individual consciousness shapes the world in general. Everybody can somehow relate to it, as we have closely examined how our consciousness as an Ilonggo, as a Bisaya, and as a Filipino created a collective impact to the immediate locality and to the whole world during this time of pandemic. On bringing this privileged role to take part in shaping the world, our country, our Visayas, as a part thereof, we practically started our humble efforts to proposing change within our immediate locality, which is Iloilo City. Our redevelopment plan proposals aim to highlight art, architecture, and culture. Actually, we have presented already to our mayor the following a prototype plaza design with Visayan culture markings, a public art development plan that features monuments of local heroes, a zone that highlights our local culture and traditions, and lastly, the linear space, which we want to call Sugidanan Park, is our favorite. It is a proposal wherein a part of our esplanade will be dedicated to showcasing Panay Bukidnon culture, displaying a wide variety of art such as murals, sculptures, and installation arts exclusively about the epic, its characters, creatures, and patterns, so that along with enjoyable walking, one can also be culturally educated as well. The goal of this is promote the culture and bring about civic pride to our own part of the Kalibutan. This initiative hopes to create a sense of place for the Ilonggos, developing a common consciousness of taking pride to what is truly local, embodied in our popular slogan, I am Iloilo.
How did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? What was the process and the method involved in your research and reflection? Can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan?
As artists have been working on sculptures and monuments for quite some time, the anatomical aspect of different creatures and characters is a constant challenge, and that is what makes art more interesting for us. Because we have been personally attached to the commitment of promoting our culture. Fueled with curiosity and desire to learn more about the Sugidanan and Panay Bukidnon, we did not hesitate at all when we were approached for this project. This alone is so much to explore, and we are not even close to halfway. What is most interesting is that, along with the similar ancient view that the world is flat, they have a wide array of characters, both mortals and deities cohabiting the world of several layers. We have chosen this as a very appropriate theme because Not only that these are oral traditions, which might get extinct, but also these are the basis of their customary laws about living and even death. In order to decipher their world, first we began exploring on the possible setup of the Sugidanan world. We tried to theorize first because this matter is quite mysterious and unfamiliar to us. Hence, we imagined it starting from a macro scale, such as how does a three-layered world looks like? What holds it together? Can we create a model where we can have a few scientific bases so that there is a percentage of reality to it? Next is to theorize on the distinct characteristics of this environment. What creatures may possibly inhabit these environments? Who are the characters that lives in each layer, or who can navigate on multiple layers? On a micro scale, we plan to show how a community would look like, the interconnection of their spaces, on the basis of ancient Bukutan designs and layouts. The architectural details is based on the carving of traditional talibong blades and tubok patterns of the Panay Bukidnots. The proposal is actually to create an imagined world of Sugidanan epics. We opt to use dolls or puppets as characters. They will be positioned inside the Bukutan with resemblance to the setup of a Catholic church retablo. This concept is deeply rooted to us living in close proximity to Haro Cathedral, just at the back of the church. And also, we have done numerous commission works already from Catholic churches and religious entities. Shown are a few samples of works, and most of them were part of church altars. Also very timely, we're currently doing a renovation work in Igbaras Church, specifically the altar area. So there it is, a retablo setup would abstractly denote the fusion of our beliefs as Catholics who have high regards to saints and religious statues, but also with a strong fascination of the mythological world of our ancestors. It will also be a good conversation piece because of the familiarity of retablo to the public and the contrast it may convey to some. As we were used to sculptures which are stationary, this proposal will be an opportunity for us to explore a slightly different approach of presenting our ideas, but still within the context of anatomy, which has always been the focal subject of our visual arts crafts. So why dolls? Because they are portable objects and can be used as play dolls to aid teaching and can later be referred to as toys or action figures, which can be collectible and easily distributed anywhere, especially when Sugidanan gains worldwide recognition. These dolls also represent the body, wherein the bearer is its consciousness, where movement and sense of direction is impossible without it. Who knows, in the near future, maybe these dolls would gradually replace these collectibles such as Barbie, LOL, or some action figures such as Marvel and DC, which apparently has gained a certain level of popularity, which for parents like us may be quite alarming actually. Having our own Sugidanan dolls would help revive not just the story itself, but the delightful experience when a community or family used to gather and hear amazing stories from a Manuk Sugidanon.
Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one? Thank you very much, AR Sculptura. And we proceed with another project from Roja City with ICANN Creatives. Good morning, ICANN. ICANN.
Good morning. Good morning, Sir Libby.
Okay. Are you ready with the slides? And with the first question, can you briefly talk about your practice in the art world, in the art and culture scene, and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? With this as an entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that question, and good morning to everyone. So, next slide, please. So Icon Creatives is an art collective of multidisciplinary artists in the province of Capiz, consists of both visual artists and cultural workers, which aims in providing platform and services to benefit the community, especially the artists, such as to advocate for awareness, preservation, and advancement of the arts, culture, and the society as a whole. For a year, the group has been organizing events geared towards the recognition of the local talents and the discovery of the curiosity towards the different um, communities. So as you can see, we do art events, art commissions, art workshops, and also art documentary. Next slide, please. So maybe you're curious why I show to you the evolution of our logo. It only shows that ICANN existed long time ago, since 2012. So the name ICANN started way back 2012 as Doodle Group and was revived to existence after Viva Excon Capis, in which it had the name ICANN Movement. With exposure to community works due to the requirement in SEC registration, the group was renamed ICANN Creatives in 2019, and until today with its new logo, with the guidance of P. Roldan, members within the collective started their journey and growth in both their art practice and the community before coming as a group. We started to have it personal until we accept commissions and share it to the community in which we were exposed to. Next slide. For our art practice, we have paintings and mural with illustrations. We use mediums of blue ink, brush pens, colored markers, art style, cartooning, feminine art, techniques such as hatching, also with emphasis on hair strands. Next. That's our illustration. We have also digital illustrations. Next slide. So we also have character design in the group. We do original concepts, inspirations coming from the local scene, like sea creatures from the logo of our city. Also, we have projects from international clients in which we develop characters and also storyboards. Next slide. We also do cosplay, being exposed to the pop culture. We do cosplay as a form of expression under the performance art due to the influence of watching anime, movie, and games in which we get our characters from. Next slide. And yes, with constant exposure to art and community, we were able to form, lead, and be a member of various art groups in which we organize art meetups, art talks, art demos, art workshops, art exhibits, and art camps, both local and national. So for our art and culture scene, next slide, please. We have been part of some art and culture scene in the province, the 10 epics of the Panay Subidanan exhibit at Ang Panoglin Museum way back 2014 and celebrating the Indigenous Peoples Month. We were a part in the character design, also with costume making and props making. Next slide, please. Conceptualizing was done by the museum together with Dr. Alicia Magos, Dr. Maria Cristin Moico, and Federico Caballero. Next slide. Also, the premiere of Kurbing Bing Korobawbaw, a children's operetta present during the Kapistan 2015. The music drama was composed by Dr. Moico and the story was made by Federico Caballero and the Panay Bukidnon community. We are assigned in making the costumes, makeup, and stage design. Photos are from the museum. And last scene, last slide. Next slide, please. We also participated on the recent Viva Excon 2018 held here in Capiz. Some of the activities and exhibits we participated are the Skylab, photos from TV, Barangay XX mural, and also opening performance art. Next slide, please, for the mural. So we have the concept and also the mural. And next slide, we have the performance art, that is me cosplaying Daga. So having exposure and participation to various art scenes in our place made us more open-minded, grounded, became more sensitive and appreciative of our culture. And we look at art with value, importance, and a tool that can be used for change and with impact of the society.
Thank you. The next question is, how do you respond as an artist to the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind? How does that framework resonate with your interest as an artist in general and as an artist who has links in the Visayas?
Thank you for that question. So, next slide. As an artist native in the province of Capiz, Dalan Panay, the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind, provoked our hearts and minds with excitement and awe. This concept brings us into the idea and possibilities on what part of our world or our existing world in mind can be shared to the many that can best promote our place and its rich culture, as well as to have others, especially artists, be an active part in the world making. So with the illustrations on the slide, Icon Creative sees the world as a group of communities and the community as having different worlds in which every specific communities differ with one another yet coexist in one realm, the physical and the virtual. The group started engaging with the community face to face until we shifted online due to the pandemic, making use of the virtual world. Next slide. So our first event as a group is Lagaw 2020. Lagaw means to wander. Um, it is the Creative World Discovery in partnership of provincial government and tourism office in celebrating National Arts Month. We see this as the accumulation of the creative worlds, community building, gathering different communities representing the 7 art forms, which is the visual arts, architecture, music, literature, dance, cosplay, film, and theater. Next slide. So those are the different communities that we gathered to our event. Next slide. Next event, we have the Guso 2020, which means to swarm. It is an online talent stream. So also an event in partnership of the provincial government and the tourism office. This event was supposed to be in celebrating Kapistahan, but due to COVID, we have it online instead. It's an online contest featuring the community of rappers, dancers, and cosplayers. Sunbit, one of our events, is a 24 bars rap contest, which has the message to empower Kapisnon in fighting COVID. While Baile is a dance contest in which to uplift our Kapisnon frontliners. Next slide. The third event under the Guso is Tigbaliw. Tigbaliw means to transform, Hiligaynon. We gave focus on the characters of the epics of Panay Sugidanon for them to cosplay. For additional knowledge, we invited our curator Sir Libby to have a talk on Panay mythology. Next slide. We also have Hugod. It is now the world on the business side. So a project with the city government and tourism as well. We made a documentary featuring 10 inspiring and adaptive businesses in the midst of the pandemic. Next slide. So that's Hugod. Next. Oh wait, Dihon. Go back again. Nag-interchange ang slides. So the Dihon is an online art webinar series in partnership with ang Panuli Museum, giving out free online workshops in relation to the visual arts. Next slide on Project Alat na. Next. So this is a recent event in celebrating Arts Month this Feb. We focused to the world of the visual arts in which we made a visual art documentary to 5 local artists, which their subjects as the Fisher Folks from Capiz. They conducted interviews and dialogues and had their painting on specific coastal communities. This was on the purpose of uplifting and recognizing our local artists and Fisher Folks. So that would be all for the answer on question number 2.
The next question for question number 3 is, how did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? What was the process and method involved in your research and reflection? Can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan?
Okay, next slide. So if you can remember, as I mentioned, our Daguso event, which is Tigbaliw, and together with the webinar of Panay Mythology with Sir Libby, our past exposure and journey towards discovering the worlds of the epics of Panay Sugidanon motivated us to pursue after Tigbaliw event with the guidance of Sir Libby. We believe that exploring the world in mind of the Panay Bukidnon is a long process in which it must continue towards the goal of opening more doors of discovery. Next slide. So along the process, we have our past resources already with the interviews under Doc Moico and Sir Caballero. But then we have our series of Sugidanon online talks with Sir Libby to further enhance and discover more on each characters. So those are the sketches and past studies. Next slide. So the title of our project is Manug sa Ulog. It means the one who portrays a role. So iniligay ng dialect. The process went from late night online talks, multiple sketches, reading documented write-ups from Doc Moico and Doc Magos, and consultation from elders. The process begins as we choose 10 characters which represents the three realms of the world of the Panay Epic Sugidano, which is the Urugan, or the heavens, the Pagtungan, which is the Middle Earth, and the Limawon, which is the underworld. Made several conceptual sketches. Next slide, please. We made several conceptual sketches for each considering their story, personality, significant identity, and also color study. Afterwards, it will be sent for consultation, and once approved, we will have it illustrated furthermore for enhancement. So next slide. These are our study sketches under approval. Next slide. So these are the process. We start from rough sketch based on our talks and references, and then we will have it line art, and we will color it. We use digital platform for it, painting. Next slide. So these are the a preview of some of the proposed images or illustrations of one of the 10 characters that we have chosen. Next slide. So the first stage was the illustrations. The second stage was to make a game screen preview in which this is a mock in which the viewers will see it as like a game in which there is like a game title in which you will click, and then you will choose a character to click, and after you click a character, the descriptions and maybe the skills will appear, and then we also have a reference, art references, and also the cosplay scenes. Next. So the last stage of our project is the cosplay performances. After the characters have been illustrated and approved, now the cosplayers will get references on the characters and create a costume out of it, and they will be performing online. So we choose the game inspired because the overall appearance and design of the characters are more elaborate and detailed. Also, most people are hooked into games which involves a playable character. We also choose cosplay because through it, we can bring their world to life. Through this project, we believe that this will bring about interest, both young and old, be an attraction, and educate the viewers to go and discover the world within the minds of our Panay Bukidnon. As visual artists and cultural workers, we have a vital part in bringing those characters to life and existence. Again, a kalibutan loved by some, yet to be discovered by many. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ICANN. When we will proceed with the group of Ron Espinosa, Farida Caballo, and T.M. Malones. Let me just have some time to prepare their presentation. Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? With this as entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it.
We are a team of artists from Iloilo, both from the province and the city, who are into performance, design, moving images, and sound. Iloilo had a rich and vibrant cultural scene where literary art forms such as the Binalaybay, Sugitanon, Composo, Zarzuela, and Drama sa Radyo emerged and were performed in the Kinaraya and Hiligaynon languages. This rich cultural landscape has ignited our interest for collaboration. Ron Espinosa is an interior designer, actor, writer, director, set designer, and visual artist, and is an active member of the University of San Agustin Little Theater in Iloilo City. Prior to working on films in Manila, T.N. Malones is a photographer, cinematographer, and independent film director. He has directed independent films that were featured in film festivals such as Cine Casimanwa, Cinemalaya, and some international film festivals. He is currently working on mainstream movies and shows for television. I, Farida Caballo, am a classical violinist and theater practitioner, having performed in theater productions in Iloilo City and Manila. My interests also include teaching basic acting, writing and directing, particularly for a specific community in Iloilo City. I am currently working on new material that focuses on themes that explore family narratives, conflict, and memory. Both Ron Espinosa and I are currently teaching in the academe. He teaches interior design at the University of San Agustin, while I teach art appreciation at De La Salle University, Manila. We both share the interest of exploring other art forms in relation to our theater backgrounds. We believe that the variety of artistic experiences and backgrounds we have, after having worked alongside different artists from Iloilo City through the years, will contribute immensely to the work we will be doing for Viva XCon. Collaboration among local artists was the primary objective of cultural workers in the mid-1980s in Iloilo City. The Arts Council of Iloilo was founded to provide opportunities for these collaborations to take place. The council's establishment paved the way for local artists from the visual arts, theater, dance, music, and literary arts to work together. Prior to collaborating, the Arts Council of Iloilo brought in world-class performances from Cultural Center of the Philippines, Tanghalang Pilipino, Ballet Manila, Ballet Philippines, Krasnoyarsk Ballet, among others, to develop a concert-going Ilonggo audience. In addition, the Arts Council also brought in notable artists from Manila to provide training for our local artists. My mother, Corazon Caballo, was one of the active cultural workers of the Arts Council at that time. Having seen her up close, organizing and collaborating with other artists and cultural workers created and nurtured a deep interest in audience and artist development. Eventually, Ilonggo artists developed and produced more work and were given opportunities to perform beyond the province of Iloilo.
How do you respond as an artist to the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind? How does that framework resonate with your interests as an artist in general and as an artist who has links with the Visayas?
The attempt at finding pieces of family history and kinship through the unearthing of memory from places, spaces, objects, text, and performance leave a deep, heightened, and ongoing curiosity for answers beyond my own quest for self-inquiry and discovery. I am interested to discover deeper connections beyond mere kinship. Music, image, text, and space are strongly bound and connected to this kinship, and it is in these connections that seem to open a multi-layered and multifaceted tapestry of stories through an hacienda, the world of Faraon. As an interior designer, Ron Espinosa will articulate the science of building and designing spaces, its influences, and histories. Tia Malones will focus on documenting structures and spaces on changing landscapes. Through his cinematic direction, he will weave all the elements to capture the built heritage of Western Visayas.
How did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? What was the process and the method involved in your research and reflection?
Can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan?
The group assembled to work on a documentary about built heritage in Western Visayas. A source of inspiration and concern are the surviving or decaying industrial, residential, and commercial heritage structures in the different districts of Iloilo City. The work touches on topics of wealth, influence, invisible labor, and migration. Themes of place, identity, time, and memory are explored in this work about haciendas, mansions, and commercial centers. The project deals with the sensitive experience of historic colonialism and cultural imperialism through architecture in Panay and Negros Occidental. There is an urgency to address concerns of preservation and conservation of these structures. We must recognize that beyond their vulnerability to the physical elements that further contribute to their physical decay lies the issue of their fate, resting upon those who have the power to decide whether to preserve, restore, or demolish them. The exploration of this work may not necessarily be the answer or solution to preservation and conservation, but it could contribute to finding answers and solutions.
Thank you very much, the group of Farida.
Can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is?
Farida, Ron, and TM, and they will stay for Q&A later on. And we proceed with our projects from the Region 8. Slide please for our curator. Yes, I'd like to introduce to you the curator for Region 8, Mr. Nomar Miano. Nomar Bayog Miano has taught courses in philosophy and fine arts. He finished his undergraduate degree in fine arts and the course requirements for Masters of Arts in Philosophy from the University of San Carlos, Cebu, Philippines. He is the former Supremo of Andres USC, the social realist cultural organization and the founding chairperson of Original Art Forum, an academe-based initiative that promotes contemporary art practices and art reception in the periphery. Miano has held solo exhibitions at Finale Art File, Cultural Center of Philippines, Alternative Contemporary Art Studio, and select galleries and schools. He has presented works in important art spaces abroad as Hangara Museum in Seoul, South Korea, and C3 Contemporary Art Space in Melbourne, Australia, and participated in international art festivals and residencies such as Po Chang International Art Festival, Thailand, Yogyakarta Art Festival, Indonesia, and Taitung Museum residency for Austronesian International Arts Award in Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nomar Miano.
Thank you for hello. Thank you for the introduction, Bibi. So
Yes, you're welcome.
Before we start, maybe we can show the profile of Regional Forum. Okay, so one of my selections for this Viva exhibition is the group Regional Forum. The Regional Forum is an initiative actually that caters to the needs of based visual artists, writers in the humanities, and also the related sciences. It was originally conceived as an organization or network of visual artists, writers, and scholars that promotes critical art reception and contemporary art practices in the regions. Okay. Regional Forum actually has launched exhibitions, fellowships, discussion groups, archival or research works, and participated in residencies abroad since its founding in 2014. RAP also has hosted residencies for artists from Malaysia and Australia. It has received honor recognition award in the recently held Austronesian Arts Award for Taitung Art Museum, that is in Taiwan. Okay. So for this particular project, Crafts Project for Kalibutan engages the contemporary in art as an instantiation of geography. Each project insinuates that geography is not reducible to space like a piece of land. Okay, rather, RAF recognizes that space is a social artifact, replete with affectual investments. RAF's gesture aims to echo the philosopher Jacques Ranciere's take on contemporary art. Because you see, for Ranciere, the identification of the contemporary in art embodies a certain form of social political arrangement. In his mind, what enables us to identify contemporary as contemporary are the effective social political arrangements that are operative in Kalibutan today. These arrangements shape encounters and mediation in social spaces. Geography, what they mean by geography, precisely. The categories that we use to identify forms of art like community art, collaborative art, new genre, public art, street art, cinema, are exemplifications of certain affective gestures, encounters, or modalities that channel or shape artistic agencies. So the project of RAF then is to mediate the life world with the binal or the festival structure. That is, its aim is to facilitate the emancipatory gesture of inclusion in an inclusionary ecology of art. Okay, so let me introduce the members of the RAF team, Regional Art Forum team, who are with me today, and also members of Regional Forum from Samar. Okay, let me start by introducing RAF team members who are here today with me. So we have Ivy Mariapa.
Hello.
Ivy Mariapa is an educator and practicing artist. And we have Geraldine Ocampo.
Hello.
Geraldine Ocampo is also a practicing artist and an educator. We have Eden from Samar, a cultural worker and activist. Okay. And we have Nika Lindo, a practicing artist. She also writes for Regional Art Forum. Okay. And then we have Santi Perez from Samar. Can you say hi?
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Santi is a prolific cultural worker. And also Pena Joyce Muscare, a development worker in Samar who also works in Leyte. So, hello, Pena.
Hello.
Okay, but sadly, one of the team members of RAF for this project is not with us today because the name is Donna Medinilla. So Donna is not able to join the team because we are observing health precautions in connection to COVID. So that's the group. So let me proceed to the first question. Okay, the first question is, can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas? And with this as an entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it. Maybe Miss Ivy Mariapa can start with the answer.
The Regional Art Forum originally conceived as an organization or network of visual artists, writers, and scholars that promote critical art reception and contemporary art in the regions. Being so, our organization's 3 goals or objectives. Next slide.
Hello.
So our organization pursues 3 goals or objectives that reflect the mission of a committed cultural worker who works in the periphery. So first, RAF aims to facilitate dialogue or discourse between writers or scholars and practicing contemporary artists in the regions or in the Visayas. We are doing this in order to encourage scholarship or research on regional art in hope of producing publications such as catalogs, books, pamphlets, etc., and the building of an archive for these publications and related scholarships. So second, our group aims to encourage critical reception for contemporary art practices of region-based artists. But over the years, however, RAF has evolved into more than just a scholarly initiative. It now sees or recognizes itself as a group of practicing artists who also function as writers, community workers, scholars, and in some instances, counter experts that promote art reception, render service to our communities through the arts, and commit to region-based art practices.
Okay, maybe Gigi can add something to
Next slide, please.
to what maybe he said.
So as an organization, what we do directly relates to Visayas as a notion of regional space. So we understand the region as a spatial and temporal qualification that coincides with the practice, reception, and articulation of art. So it is our understanding that the regional is a pliable category in that it converses with the peripheral, the marginal, and the multi-centered, the local, in this case, the Visayas, and the global in a complex way.
Okay, maybe we can go to we can go to Samar. Maybe Santi, can we go to the next slide, please?
Thank you, Sir Omar. For more than 2 decades, I have served the art community in the Northern Samar. I started this kind of work in 1996 by joining an integrated art workshop organized by some artists from Calbayog and from the province. But my full-time commitment to cultural work really began in 1998 when I was trained to become an artist of the Dewata Northern Samar Arts Council, which was founded by the pillars of arts in the province. My journey with the council was very colorful and fruitful. In the 8 years since I took on the job, we have organized several school-based arts organizations, conducted artistic and creative workshops and trainings with the community-based cultural groups, with youth groups, peasants, women's, and even the indigenous group from Las Navas and a progressive group from Tacloban City.
Okay, so thank you for that, Santi. How about Fena? Can Fena talk about her development work? I understand that Fena works with non-government and people's organizations in Samar and also in Leyte. So maybe she can share as to how her development work resonates with art practice or cultural practice, particularly this practice. So Fena, can you say something?
Yes, I am currently working with a humanitarian non-government organization that is in the region and have been engaging farmers and women, youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities in the community-based disaster risk reduction management and climate change adaptation and administration management. So, kinikilala namin ang kultura, kaugalian at pananaw ng grupo.
Maybe Fena can move closer to the mic. We cannot clearly hear.
Recognize at kinikilala namin na ang kultura, kaugalian at pananaw ng grupo ng mamamayan ay batay sa economic at social at political na kalagayan na namulatan nila. So, as well, dito natin binabatay ang kung paano o ano ang maaring gawing intervention para paunlarin ang magagandang practices at tugunan or bibigyan ng solusyon doon sa humahadlang sa progress or sa pagunlad. So, itong shared experiences at influences natin ang humuhubog ng ating cultural practices. So, sa karanasan natin, sa pananantalahan
Next slide, please.
Yolanda, ay kung paano bumangon ang mga survivors, ay siya rin naghubog kung ang bagong mukha ng resilience na alam na natin ngayon. So, currently now, we are dealing with this pandemic and this arbitrary killing, and in a way, this is also shaping the Visayas and the rest of the nation as well.
Thank you for that, Fena. Now we move to the next question. Okay, the next question is, how do you respond as an artist, cultural worker, or even activists to the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind? How does that framework resonate with your interests as an artist, a cultural worker in general, and as someone who has links with the Visayas? Maybe Santi can start because I understand he prepared the original proposal.
Thank you again, Sir Omar. The Samar or Northern Samar group responded to the proposition as we submitted our original proposal, the Crisis Project, where It is a, what you call this, documentation, video documentation project. The project will gather and organize peasant women from 10 to 15 individuals and the existing cultural group from Palapag, which is the Palapag Cultural and Arts Guild, or the Papatag, and create a focus group discussion regarding the life they are facing before and during the pandemic. And this is a video documentation project with the consent of all participants. Two cameras will be needed. One is a stationary camera, and the other will serve as a focused camera on the solo speaker. Also, we need a photo documentation, and until Sir Miano proposed a better form for the proposal.
Okay, maybe Ivy can explain more about this, because I understand that the original proposal went through deliberations. Okay, so the Regional Art Forum team deliberated on the original proposal prepared by Santi. Okay, maybe Ivy can explain about this. Ivy.
Right. So we think that the world of art can be exclusionary or exclusive, which defeats the very notion of art and the emancipatory promise that it entails. So we feel that we need to do something about it, and that we need to intervene with kalibutan, or the world, diba? So the world of art, being a part of a wider world, we think needs interrogation. So we are reminded here of institutional critiques in the 70s and 80s, when artists started to question the covert operation of power or domination that shapes the world of art. The privileges that it preserves and protects, for instance. So as artists, we think that we need to self-critically engage in the areas of life where certain dominations operate and impede development. That's why for this project, we are working with cultural and development workers like Fena, Eden, and Santi, who are more experienced in doing community work. So we see this as an opportunity to engage Viva, or the festival format, to question its present form in relation to contemporary art, in connection to the geopolitical decentering that we think is desirable as artists and educators who work in the periphery. So in other words, this project with Viva, which engages the region, very much resonates with the framework and goals of the Regional Art Forum.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, Ma'am Ivy. We will go now to the third question. Okay, so the third question is, how did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? What was the process and method involved in your research and reflection? Can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan? I think it was also already partly explained by Santi. And okay, maybe Santi can enlighten us once again. Maybe he can continue his discussion about the original proposal. Santi, next slide, please. Next
presented to us the possibility of collaborating or doing a project together with the Regional Art Forum and Viva, it ignited my interest. I agreed to his proposal and also shared to him our own concept. Actually, our first proposal was on the women in crisis, as I have said a while ago, which was supposed to be a video documentation project that gathers information regarding the plight of peasant women during this time of global pandemic. However, Mr. Miano suggested a more intimate concept. Together with Raf, we are doing a sort of conversation pieces with the peasant women and the artists of Palapag. The Northern Summer, our group did a series of brainstorming session via Facebook and Zoom since it's pandemic. The idea of conversation pieces seems a bit challenging for me since it's new to my consciousness. So the Northern Summer group, which was me, Fena, and Edin, agreed to divide the task. Fena and I were tasked to consult the sectors involved, and Fena talked to the peasant women of Palapag, and I spoke to the artist group. They all agreed to participate in the project and collaborate with us. Eden was in charge with the documentation. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Since you mentioned Eden, maybe Eden can share to us how the three of you met, and maybe he can talk to us how he is able to convince you to work with Regional Art Forum. So Eden is actually here with us now. So Eden, can you please?
I have known Fena and Santi way back 2000. Given the fact that we have worked on several community-based projects, not only in Northern Summer, but the region in Region 8. And after having a brief discussion and exchange of ideas with Nomar or Mr. Miano, it was but automatic to have to encourage or ask Santi and Fena to join us with the project, since they are actually working on community-based projects and of course cultural workers and practitioners.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Then now we will go to the next. Oh no, we need to clarify something, because actually the idea of having conversation pieces instead of focus group discussions, which was the original intention of the proposal prepared by Santi. Actually, conversation pieces is actually product of deliberations with the team members of Regional Art Forum. So maybe Nika can explain as to why is that. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Actually, RAF has this program called Community Art Archive, which aims to materialize one of
Oh, what happened? Wala kami. Ano makan? Ang gira? Hindi pa naman ako nakaliba.
Hello po. Hello everyone. Since nawala po sila Sir Nomar, ako na lang po yung mag-introduce sa aking sarili. I'm Soika. I'm Soika Vometer. Babasahin ko lang po yung So Soika Vometer is born in Leyte. He finished his fine arts degree at the University of San Carlos and practiced the formative years of his art in Cebu City.
Soika has held a number of solo exhibitions in Cebu. He has painted street murals and participated in residencies abroad, most notable of which were in Belgium in 2016 and Australia in 2018. Soika has exhibited in important contemporary spaces abroad, such as C3 Contemporary Art Space in Melbourne, Australia in 2018, and Po Chang Academy of Arts in Thailand last 2019. He is now based in his hometown in Matalom, Leyte. Soika identifies as a street artist. He calls his work abject tunes, taken from the word abject and cartoons, a juxtaposition of two concepts that he believes to be contradictory. For Soika, his work is basically about eroticism and images that are discomforting to see, but he insinuates that it is also about the unfortunate events that plague humanity, like genocide, torture, and other abject things like tumors, radioactive deformations, vomits, decapitations, abnormalities, black toxins, and vile illness. Key sources materials from pornography, obscenities, and repulsive images, which he integrates with sweet colors in order to play on the
Okay.
possibilities of irony and contrast. Soika's recent works are variegated in form.
Okay
He
lang.
collaborates nana sila sir, with other artists to explore other areas of artistic expression and virtual spaces.
Okay, Soika, by the way.
Ay, ikaw na sir. Nawala.
Okay. So sorry for that disruption. We had this technical difficulty there here with regard to internet connection. Okay. Soika's project for Kalibutan, which he calls Panic Box, explored the intramural dimension of street art, but in an entirely different sense. Whereas street art is commonly seen as an engagement with notions of geography, Panic Box engages the chaotic interior of the artist's consciousness in a way that implicates the anarchy of visual and auditory mediations in real life. Whereas street art is seen as a corollary extension of visual virtual space, Soika's Panic Box aims to be psychological and surreal, which suggests rapprochement between Breton and Baudelaire. So we'll go to the first question, Soika. The first question is the same question addressed to the earlier artists and groups. Okay, can you briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in a way linked to the Visayas? And with this as an entry point, you can please also reflect on the scene and how you relate to it. Okay.
Hello everyone. Again, I'm Soika Vomiter. Before, I used to focus my creative practice to street art and my paintings. But for now, I naano ko yung sarili ko as a multidisciplinary artist. So I do street art. Ito yung one of my photos streets ko. And next slide, please. I do performance art. Time-based art. Sound art with my other pseudonym, Schizophrenia Almost Standard. And here are my tracks. Next, please. Video art. It's a stop motion. And painting. I like to explore The less explored spaces. Next, please. So I like to explore less explored spaces and some experimental processes. Kasi gusto kong mag-initiate ng bago or unusual na experience sa isang space, including the public. And fortunately, it was unplanned na ang universe ay dinala ako pabalik dito sa hometown ko sa Matalong Leyte. So Matalong Leyte is a very laid back province here in Visayas. And with the absence of art scene and other subcultures that I like DIY gigs, graffiti culture, and so on. But it is a perfect playground for my creative practice. I can play on its innocence. I can let the public spaces experience something bold and new. So these are the images in my hometown. The church, the plaza, the market near the river.
Go to the next questions.
Yes, that's all for question number 1.
Okay, so you go to the next question, huh? Okay. How do you respond as an artist to the proposition kalibutan? Okay, how does that framework resonate with your interest as an artist, as someone who lives in the Visayas?
So, well, kalibutan for me is a space with an endless possibilities where excitements, adventures, curiosities, and risks resides when it comes to creative practice. In my case, the essence of a creative playground here in my hometown is more concrete. Kay ang hometown namin ay yun, napaka walang art scene, ganun. Tapos gusto ko kasing maka-initiate ng parang hindi lang siya creativity, kundi magdudulot din ng parang masa-shock yung mga tao.
Okay,
like near insanity joke.
So Sai, how did you decide on the project of Kalibutan? You explained to us the process and your method. If you did research and reflections, explain to us. Give us a glimpse about your project. Okay. Sige.
So first, it's very challenging to connect dito sa aming town kasi unang-una walang art scene dito, yung art ay parang alien dito eh. Tapos yun gusto ko na yung project ko for Viva ay may nagko-connect sa mga tao dito between my work and the people. And then yun, that's the very challenging problem nga at dapat ko i-figure out. And then during these days, series of anxiety attacks ang aking na-experience because of this pandemic. Next please. Next. Pero yung itong mental health issues ko ay hindi na ito bago para sa akin kasi matagal ko na itong na-experience eh. Na-amplify lang siya ngayon dahil dahil yung mga bagong protocols ay nagdulot talaga ng malaking changes sa aking routine. Like I want to travel but I can't because of this pandemic. And then out of a sudden, I raised a question again na kung nag-widespread ba talaga itong mental health issues ngayon, ngayong panahon na to dahil sa pandemic, sa mga bagong na-experience nila. So possibly yes, kasi itong pandemic is a global catastrophe. And because of these questions, I was thinking that maybe this is one of my stepping stones for the conceptualization of my project. So I decided to choose at least 10 people who experienced hard lockdowns, and most of them came from critical COVID areas like Manila and Cebu City. And then, yes, I also decided to create a space. It's like a exclusive space for us to connect with each other. And then, yeah, this is my proposal for Kalibutan. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next, please. So this is my proposal. It's a wooden box, and the interior of this box is I put images, random things, and in order to enhance the chaotic ambience inside the box, I put also red lights and disco ball. So ito yung mangyayari kapag when we press on. So ito kulay red, tapos may mga iba't ibang colors. At saka hindi lang sa visual yung experience natin sa loob. Meron din itong strange, noisy audio sound na para mag-uplift din mag-amplify ng chaos sa loob ng box. Tapos ito naman yung exterior. Ito yung may image ng tao, at by the way may camera din na kapag papasok yung one of the participants sa loob, i-record siya dito through video recording. Tapos may mukha ng usual cartoon character na aking ginagawa. And itong panic box ay actually is a representation for myself. So ako ito, tapos yung interior ng box ay ito naman yung kumbaga mindscape. So upon entering inside, at yung mga participants ay pinapashare ko sila sa kanilang mga experience during the hard lockdowns, mga anxieties nila. So through that, we will be able to connect with each other. We will highlight our commonalities in terms of the mental health statuses during those times na nasa hard lockdown sila. At yun, pag doon kami nagko-connect through
Okay na to, Soy.
experiences.
We will end there, Soy. Okay?
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you. Okay. Thank you very much, Soy, for your interesting, for your discussion. Okay. But just for a few seconds lang, the rough form lang I would like to to wrap up what they've shared kanina, and they told me just maybe I can just share a few lines lang from them. And their project is really to they are actually mindful of the tendency of collaborative community practices today that have become extensions or avenues of governmentality, which they think compromises the liminal nature of art. This is what they say. So Tena actually, before we were cut off, she was about to share the actual field work. Okay, so that supposedly yun ang mangyayari sa end ng conversation. So it is more like a reaction against. The project is also a reaction to the present, the way collaborative practices are being practiced today. So now we can go to our next curator. Let me introduce the next curator from Leyte, please. Can we show? Okay. So the curator for Leyte is Mas Edwinson Briones. He is a faculty member of the Division of Humanities at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. He completed his art studies program at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. In 2014, he underwent a qualified trainers workshop under the AFS Intercultural Link Learning Program in New Delhi. He also was a fellow in the 2017 Critica National Workshop on Art and Cultural Criticism at the University of San Agustin, Iloilo City. In the following year, he presented his paper, Hexes and Histrionics, Poetics Through the Body in a Devotion to the Santo Niño in Leyte. That is during the International Federation on Theater Research, that is in 2018. His artistic and curatorial practices have developed largely through his role in events organized by UP Tacloban. He produced the visual branch of, among other events, the 5th International Conference on Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences, and the Rayandayan, an exhibition of paintings and sculptures which he co-curated. In October 2020, he curated Kaagi Haladawan, okay, an online photo exhibit of the Filipino-American War, which was part of the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Leyte Samar Heritage Center. He currently serves as the faculty in charge of UP Tacloban's Office of Continuing Education. Among his research interests are art history and theory, geopoetics, mesology, and cultural studies. So let us welcome Mars from Leyte.
Hi, salamat Nomar. So as everyone knows already, probably, I'll be having a conversation with the two artists with whom I'm working. They are both from Leyte. So first, I'll have a conversation with Popo Amascual. Popo Amascual is a BA Communication Arts graduate and instructor of the Division of Humanities at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. She holds an MA Theater Arts degree from UP Diliman and participated in productions of the Dulaang Universidad ng Pilipinas, notably Tisoy Brown, Hari ng Wala, and Faust, and in various institutional events in UP Diliman such as the Diliman Arts Month and the Linggo ng Parangal. She served as a member of the emerging interdisciplinary research under the Cultural Performances team. Amascual is engaged in the study and production of performances. With staged performances, she is interested in understanding how patterns in the script, mostly found in recurring scenes, create more confusion among viewers who seek to attain closure from the story with alternative perspectives of the same units in the narrative structure unfolding, leading to further discussions. In terms of research, she has been involved in the documentation of cultural performances, specifically practices and rituals performed in smaller communities that celebrate distinct and dynamic expressions of creativity and beliefs. She also intends to explore the possibilities of applying concepts in dramaturgy to disaster risk reduction and calamity preparedness. For Viva XCon 2020, Amascual explores what she calls mediatized sonic performance. The project, entitled Hingalo, will consist of breathing and other found sounds to be narrativized in the context of the current COVID-19 pandemic. The audio file will be uploaded online and made available to audiences who are then given the choice to record their own respiratory sounds through a software. The resulting soundscapes will convey a sonic awareness of the virulent and co-constitutive relationships between the body and the world. So everybody, let's welcome Papa Amasqual. Popo. Um, uh, from my end, I cannot hear you actually. Uh, can everybody else hear her, or is it just from my end?
Hello, hello. Hello,
There.
can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So, hello, good morning.
How are you doing?
uh, I'm fine. Actually, I just had asthma attacks in the morning. But anyway, I'm here. I'm going to enjoy presenting to you my plans for Hingalo. So this is look into different respiratory sounds, especially during this time of pandemic. So next slide. Oh, okay.
I hope you're gonna be okay there. You're gonna be okay, man, diba?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Alright.
fine.
Just like the other artists, just like the questions asked by the other curators to the artist. We'd like to know about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas. With this as entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it.
Okay, could we proceed, sorry, to the next slide, please? So I'd like to give a backgrounder of my theater practice. And though I've done several productions in the various courses I taught as my students' requirements, next slide, please. I'd like to highlight these specific instances in my experience as a member of Dulang Universidad ng Pilipinas. This is the theater production arm of the theater arts program in Diliman, UP Diliman. So this was in 2016 when we did Tisoy Brown Hari ng Wala. So an adaptation of Peer Gynt's Henrik Ibsen's Peer Gynt. And I was a dramaturg in training then. The next year, next slide please, in 2017, I was one of the assistant directors for Goethe's Faust, or DUP's adaptation of this material. So in both the instances, we did a lot of extensive research in order for us to contextualize contextualize these European materials in a Filipino setting. And in the next slide, you will see screenshots of online articles posted about our research under EIDR. So I serve as a graduate assistant and as a writer, and we did, again, research on different cultural performances in selected communities in the Philippines. So this was one of the Pamagdarame in Cutud, Pampanga. And the next one is the Santa Cruzan in Pateros, Manila. It's called the Saranang Cruz. And it would come as no surprise that this interest of mine in doing research extends to, next slide please, even my academic requirement. So my research, or my thesis rather, was on the hair dance performed in Leyte by the Leyte Dance Theater and the Leyte National High School students special program for the arts. I did research on the hair practices and rituals of pre-colonial women in Limasawa. Next slide, please. So in terms of the art and culture scene in Eastern Visayas, mostly they are done nowadays in relation to Eastern Visayas as a typhoon gate of the Philippines. So my research interests also navigate towards addressing this concept. Next slide, please. That's why I have ideas related to applied theater for disaster preparedness and trauma therapy, like Karga Karga there. So Cradled, and it's my idea of an experiential theater for post-traumatic stress disorder, especially those recovering from the experience of disasters or calamities. And then in the next slide, we are brought to Hingalo, which is Applied Theater for Advocacy. So I'd like to look into different respiratory sounds, breathing sounds, and sounds of people with respiratory illnesses so that we can understand how these sounds are actually instinctive and are actually very neutral. So that's it, Mars.
Okay, so you've touched on the proposal already, your proposed project. So we'd like to ask, how do you respond as an artist to the proposition of Putan, the world in mind, and how does that framework resonate with your interest as an artist in general, and as an artist who has links with the Visayas?
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. It's quite a cliche to say that I think of Eastern Visayas as a microcosm, not just of the Philippines, but of the entire world. And when I say that, I actually want to look at the world as a table for collaboration. So since theater is a highly collaborative art form, you have various artists, experts working on staging a play or a production. And I'd like to think of I'd like to think of these collaborative efforts in doing a production as something that we can also apply in terms of addressing societal problems, especially those related to the whole global health crisis and also relating to disaster or calamities. So, if I may, I could use this analogy in terms of the last productions I have done. Last year for the Yolanda commemoration, we did Layeta Bukoy's Coro de los Diablos. It's actually an adaptation of William Golding's Lord of the Flies. This is just your typical reader's theater on an online platform. So here, I think of these productions as as a template for another one, for a better version, an improved version, the same way how we address problems that affect communities may also be done as a sort of templated version of one that we are planning on currently. So, theater involves a lot of brainstorming with other experts. We also did that for this particular production. So, there is a material that we can revise, we can make cuts, and then form a dramaturgical book out of. So, in the next slide, we did an exploration on site the concept of site-specific performances, especially on how virtual space can be used as a site for performances. So, given this idea, production or the virtual space is no longer just a part of the production aspect of a play, but it's also part of the artistic or creative aspect in staging productions. And then in the next slide, you will see uh, this performance of Iluminado Lucentes 50/50, stage reading of this material. And what's new about this, not really that new, but what I think is new about the form is that the actors had to do separate recordings of their parts. So they didn't do the recording synchronously. So the actress had to record only her parts, and she would just read the parts of her co-actor silently. And then also that's what the other actor did. He would just read his parts and be silent during the parts of his co-actor, and then we mixed them into this audio file, and we were able to broadcast it using BATI, UP Tacloban. So it's the internet community radio of UP Tacloban, and Mars is a part of this. Sorry. So that's it for the second question.
Okay. Finally, Popo, we'd like to know how you decided on your project for Kalibutan. What was the process and method involved in your research and reflection? And can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan?
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is actually my inspiration for Hingalo. I saw this video on Facebook. A nurse, she's a mother of this 4-year-old, recorded her son as he was struggling to breathe. The son tested positive for COVID-19. And on this video, it made me feel how real this global health crisis is. And though, of course, the son had more chances of acquiring the virus because his mom is a health worker. It also makes us realize that people at home or even yourself can always acquire this virus. So it made me feel the urgency because other people are actually denying that it exists. Or when I thought of this performance, people were still in denial. So as to the proposal, next slide, please. Yeah, I just wanted to think of sounds as uh, neutral neutral concepts. Uh, whenever you hear something, it's from a source, and the tendency for us is to always attribute the negativity to coughing and to other sounds, respiratory sounds related to COVID-19 as something that's negative, when in fact you get the virus from the person and not from the sound. So in the next slides, next slide, this is just the proposal that I submitted. And in the next slide, and the next slide, this is these are the insights that I would like to explore with Hingalo. So Hingalo intends to locate the listener as both a source and percipient of sound. So better than in ordinary context, as the sonic performance is more deliberate, focused, and performed. So you don't only participate in the performance as a listener, you can also participate eventually as a performer yourself. And second one is recognize the quality of respiratory sounds as they are highlighted within a sound environment. So appreciation of a cough, feeling discomfort over wheezing noises, and all of these and other reactions to the sounds that are going to be included in this performance will have various effects on the listener, I hope. And then the last one is experiences surrounding imagined physical and social environment as they are consciously shaped into a performance. So you will understand the narrative in terms of social interactions occurring between the person whose perspective we are going to use in the performance, as well as their interaction with various other sounds occurring in this piece. And then later on, you get to reflect on the sounds you produce yourself. So next slide, please, if I may say so. I'm actually going to use the structure of a crescendo or the increasing sound as it is recorded on a spectrogram. So it's similar to the trajectory of your typical drama. So it's going up and then slowly goes down. And in the next slide, you will see how this will pan out in the performance. The first part, the lower, the part with, what's this? That shows or depicts a low point in the spectrogram is actually that of a recording of healthy lungs. And when it goes up, it it is now going to involve or include the sounds of people with various respiratory illnesses, especially COVID-19. And in the next slide, we see the treatment of the performance in terms of the audience participation or the percipient's participation, and how from being listeners or percipients, they become performers themselves eventually. So that's it for Hingalo. Thank you, Mars. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Popo. And now at this point, we'd like to welcome our next artist, also from Leyte, but currently based in Cebu City. So we have RV Sanchez, who is a visual artist based in Cebu City. He comes from Maasin, actually, he was born there. But he earned a BFA in painting from the University of San Carlos and has participated in numerous group exhibitions and art festivals in the Philippines. He held his first solo exhibition at Halad Museum in 2014. In 2016, his video work Piège was included in Pulses and Pauses, an international video art exchange program at Marrakesh, Morocco. Sanchez has experimented with a wide range of media, including painting, video installation, and performance, addressing various issues in contemporary society. He is one of the founders of Beta Operations, a collaborative project between artists based in Cebu City that explores new tools for artistic exhibition and production. Figure drawings, Sanchez's proposed work for Viva XCon 2020, takes its cues from key concepts in basic figure drawing, namely structure and gesture. The work will unfold incrementally in two phases. Sorry, we have to update this. So it's just two phases now. Photo performance of objects and uh, where he shows the objects attached. Sorry, a photo performance of the objects which he's gonna use in the actual performance. And there's gonna be a live drawing class. So it's also there's that aspect of participation. And the work aims to convey the imbalances between oneself and the world that breed abject conditions of life. So once again, let's welcome RV Sanchez. Hoping aga, maayong buntag, RV.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the intro, Mars. So, okay.
Let's get right to it. No, the first question, which is the same one we asked to the other artists. We'd like you to briefly talk about your practice in the art and culture scene and how it is in one way or another linked to the Visayas. And with this as entry point, please reflect on that scene and how you relate to it.
Okay. So I'm RV Sanchez. I was born in Maasin City, Southern Leyte, and I'm currently based in Cebu City. Regarding my art practice, I started out doing paintings. I was initially inclined towards a more academic style of drawing and painting. And then shortly before my senior years in college, I started experimenting with different art mediums outside of painting and messed around with various mediums like videos and body-based works. And since then, I've participated in several group shows and developed relationships with different art circles here in Cebu and in the Philippines. Next slide, please. My breakthrough to the Visayan art scene for me is when I exhibited my thesis work called Piaget. It is a two-channel video installation, and it was shown at the Jose R. Gulias Halad Museum in Cebu. The work consists of a simple video and sound recordings of flies trapped on a fly paper. The first, next slide, please. So the first video is projected in the staircase wall on the museum. And the second one is projected in the storage area. Next slide, please. So conceptually, I was pretty much interested in the theories of John Baudrillard, a French theorist who wrote the treatise Simulacra and Simulation, which is relevant to all those who consume media. He warns how we all exist inside the ecstasy of communication. He invites us to look closer into how new media creates for us a particular reality, which has nothing to do with reality as it is. So next slide, please. Since then, I expanded the project into multimedia platforms where I incorporated it with performances, photography, web art, etc. So in relation to the video work, I also started doing prints just like these, where I juxtapose different images onto the fly papers. Next slide. Next slide, please. And then the video has also been shown in other group shows. This one is at the Alternative Contemporary Art Space in Cebu. It was a group show by our collective called 2P09, together with Soika and Zaldi Ramos, and it was curated by Nomar Miano. And next slide, please. Next. And then our collective was also part of the main exhibition during the Viva XCon 2014 in Bacolod. Next slide, please. Next. And then in 2016, together with several creatives, we founded Beta Operations. It's a collaborative project between artists from Cebu that explores new media for artistic exhibitions and productions. So through the span of years, we have produced gallery shows, outdoor projections, and collaborative works with Cebu musicians and sound artists. And we put together several community activities like workshops and talks. Next slide. So these are images of our some of our shows, some gallery shows. Next slide, please. Then okay, next slide, please. Some outdoor projections. Then we also participated during the Viva XCon in Capiz in last 2018. And the project dealt with the concept of spatial intervention and collaboration in the age of web technology. Next slide, please. Then in 2017, I started focusing more on performative works. This is one of the public performances I made during that period. Next slide, please. Then in November 2017, I did my first artist residency in Healing Hill Art Space in Chandigarh, India. This was my performance piece called Tape. It deals with the idea of consumerism in society and people's neglectful tendency towards the environment. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And then in 2018, I was one of the participating artists for Performance Art Week, Aotearoa. It's an annual performance art festival in Wellington, New Zealand. So that's the summary of my art practice.
All right, thank you, RV. Now I'd also like to ask you how you respond as an artist to the proposition of Kalibutan, the world in mind, and how does that framework resonate with your interests as an artist in general and as an artist who has links with the Visayas?
So for my project for Kalibutan, unlike most of my previous works, it's actually quite personal. So I initially proposed to create a live performance art through online means with the theme of disconnection and alienation. But as I was gathering ideas and materials for the project, I became quite overwhelmed and I felt lost and disconnected with the initial idea. And I have hit a creative block. So every time I experience this, I always go back to the basics. This time I decided to practice drawing the figure, drawing, uh, especially the human figure. Then recently, drawing became like a meditative activity for me. So while practicing and studying the some drawing theories, I revisited some of the basics and came across the two ideas of drawing, which is structure and gesture. So structure is the parts or the pieces. And in the human figure, these are the jointed parts, the forearms, the shoulders, etc. According to artist Steve Houston, structure is the three-dimensional forms. In its simplest state, structure can be reduced to balls, boxes, and tubes. And then the other idea is gesture. Uh, Gesture, on the other hand, is how the parts or the structures relate or fit together. It is the lifeline embedded inside any living form and mimicked in most organic ones. This gestural idea makes your art look natural. So, and what's interesting for me is that every art form works on these same ideas. Example in music, dance, storytelling. etc. So next slide, please. So I'm fascinated with the idea that the concept of gesture and structure can be a reflection of the balancing act that we must achieve in our lives. Each of us has to connect and relate to the world. There's a balancing act between getting what you need to be happy and giving to the community what it needs. Because most of the time, life doesn't go well because we haven't found that balance. You've given up too much of yourself to the world and you're feeling miserable, or you've been too selfish and no one wants to connect with you. In my case, I've been consuming too much information from news, social media, but not sharing my ideas to the world. Consuming too much junk food, fueling my body, but not using my energy towards self-development and contributing to the community. So with this, this is for the next question. Nakamute Kamers.
Sorry. So finally, we'd like you to explore the question, this set of questions. How did you decide on your project for Kalibutan? And what was the process and method involved in your research and reflection? And of course, can you give us a glimpse of your proposal for Kalibutan?
So part of the answer was already explained during earlier. So number 2 question. So with that concept, the structure and gesture, I wanted to create a performance that investigates my relationship with the information and material world and portray the imbalances that result in life being chaotic. So the proposed project takes its cues from the 2 essential ideas in figure drawing, which are structure and gesture. So for the project, it will unfold incrementally in 2 phases. The first phase is the structure part. It is the collection of figure drawings and anatomy studies drawn on found rubbish, food waste, and containers. So next slide, please. So for my first increment, these are the photographs of leftovers and rubbish from paper bags to fast food containers. And then the surfaces are turned into a ground for figures and anatomy studies. Next slide, please. So these objects will be used for the second phase of my project, which is a live collaborative project. So these are just some of the photographs for structures. Next slide, please. Next, please. Next. Next slide. So for the second phase, it's called gesture. It's a participatory video performance which takes cue from a real life drawing class. So for my performance, I want it to be more collaborative with the audience. So for its production, I will host a live video, exact platform to be decided. Maybe I'll be doing a Facebook Live. So the nature of the performance resembles an actual live drawing class where I will act as the model and the audience as the art students. I will gather the objects I collected on part 1, which was the structure phase, and tape them all over my body, representing a disproportionate figure. Next slide, please. So the audience watching remotely on their devices will be encouraged to participate by sketching or drawing the model, which is me, using any medium they prefer. So the performance or the class starts with me holding a pose for 5 minutes, and the audience will do rapid sketches of me. I will do 10 poses within the duration of the performance. And after each pose, I will shed some of the objects off my skin, gradually revealing parts of my body. during the next pose. Next, please. So during the last pose, all the objects have been removed from my body, revealing my exact body proportion. And by the end of the session, the participating audience will have several sketches or drawings of my body, the most disproportionate to the more proportionate drawings. And for the final part, I will ask the participants to share and upload their works online. So I will gather all the works, and the final output for this project will be a collection of figure drawings. So the aim of this project is really to convey the imbalances between the world that causes abject conditions in life, and the performance is an act of trying to regain that balance, and hopefully the participants will also gain different perspectives on that idea of that of regaining that balance. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the some visual references for my performance. Next slide, please. Next. So the performance is actually quite similar to my my previous project called Tape. So hopefully this will be realized as soon as possible. So that's it, Mars, for my presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, RV, and thank you, Popo and RV, once again. At this point, we're supposed to have the open forum.
I think Mars. When the open forum, I think we have eaten a lot of time already.
Yeah.
So I think this ends our session for today.
Wala na.
Oo, wala na siguro open forum because I think people are hungry. No? Si Libby is signaling.
All right.
May? Libby, you have something to say? Sorry.
Wala man ah. So, do we say something about our works summary or goodbye na?
Well, I think I think well, supposed to be there's a Q&A for this session, and I think this session is quite long already. No, we started early, and then there's so much that I think that we have covered. And I think we've covered the intentions of the artists, no, and different art groups also. So maybe the questions can be forwarded to us through YouTube, through Facebook, no. So I think maybe we can accommodate a 2-minute summary for each region. No, so maybe Libby, you can start with the summary.
From Region 6, unang-unta ang Negros Occidental, we have learned from Perry Argel his art of making art using found materials, and also from Dani Chavez film inspired by Siete Picados, and for AR Sculptura and ICANN, the intangible heritage from Panay Bukidnon, inspired Sugidanon, and for the group of Ron, Far, and TM, the tangible heritage from Western Visayas architecture. With this, I would like to forward to Mars Briones, the summary from Region 8.
Okay. So from Region 8, there's Nomar and I for the curators, and the artists with whom Nomar is working, the Regional Art Forum, they spoke about how their group reflects and interrogates preconceived notions of space. So it could be the art world, but also more generally geography, and they articulate that it is a social artifact. And there's also an emphasis on collaboration in the project that they're working on. And this interrogation of space, both of the art world and of geography in general, reminds me of what the head curator, Dr. Patrick Flores, said last time, or like 2 months ago, about the shift from the art world in society to the social world of art. So perhaps that's one thing which the group is also exploring. The other artist with whom Nomar is working, Soika, he spoke about how his works have been in the form of what he calls abject tune, which is very interesting as well, a combination of uh, provocative images, diba? So there's the abject and there's cartoon, diba? Seemingly things which cannot be juxtaposed, but he does that. So images of bodily secretions and all these provocative images. And in the specific project for Kalibutan, there's a zeroing in on mental health, and that's something which we're excited about to see how that unfolds. On my part, I'm working with Popo and RV. So Popo explores mediatized sonic performance. So there's a focus on sound, which is very uncommon, I guess, in the history of, well, because this is the visual arts, but I guess in the history of the arts, sound is something which is not often foregrounded. Specifically, Popo focuses on bodily sounds, but of course, ambient sounds as well. So this is something which we're also looking forward to. In the case of RV, he's also exploring something that's bodily, that's revolving around the human body. So figure drawings, and in this case, he is engaging the vocabulary and practice of the fine arts. But of course, he's also combining it with something which we would not think of as associated with the fine arts, and that is trash. So these are very interesting constellations of ideas and materials, which I guess makes Kalibutan, the world in mind, all the more something to look forward to. That's
Thank
it.
you, Mars. Thank you, Mars. I would like to thank the regional curators, Nomar Miano, Libby Limoso, Mars Briones, and Guinevere Dicena, and then the artists, RV Sanchez, Paulo Mascual, Regional Art Forum, TM Malones, Perry Argel, Denly Chavez, AR Sculptura, Icon Creatives, Farida Cabayao, and group, So, and Soika, no? So, we have experienced technical problems also at the same time. Si Soika na lang nag-introduce sa introduce sa lawas, no? But these things we learn, through while we go through this process, no? And I think Kalibutan, as it unfolds, the exhibition, it's becoming more interesting, as we go through all of these nodes, the curatorial node, the artist node, and then later on, I'm excited actually because it's a few months from now we'll be opening the exhibition, So so thank you very much, and then I would like to invite everyone on March 20. There will be another session or webinar on residencies after the pandemic. No, it's going to be on 10 a.m. We'll be featuring Wu Dar Quen of Taipei. Taiwan has been aggressive in the visual arts also in the recent years, And then Inti Guerrero from Bellas Artes, Bataan, Manila. And then we have Marty Halman, Ridge from the Netherlands, So, and it will be moderated by Mayumi Hirano, And then on March 27, we have a special island featuring island art initiatives, Visayan art initiatives, Cebu, Bantayan, and Bohol. And then we will have, we'll feature another node, featuring our head curator, Dr. Flores, with artists Charles Buen Consejo, Joar Songkuya, Joshua Serafin, Lani Maestro, Leo Abaya, and Ryan Bernardino. And then we will have a launch of a music video of a local band, headed by Martin Miravalles. The song is Tik Tik sa Dulom. So I also invite our island coordinators, if you have any events and or important things to announce related to the visual arts, and wants to share to the islands and our colleagues, no, brothers and sisters in the arts, please share to us the information so that we can spread it, no. So thank you very much again to the island coordinators, Marica Constantino, Maria Katrina de la Cruz, Jane Eitan Hore, Sheila Molato, Ona, Jeffrey, Brian, Eileen, Mary Ann, Francis, Jake. Thank you very much. And then Ben, no, from Leyte. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you again on next week, no, on our Beacon 2 Visual Islands virtual conferences. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant and safe weekend.
Ang mga uwak gahulat sang akon kamatayon, tion na nga bag-uhon ang banas sang panglakaton. Numanang madangtan sa pinili kong dalan, kabay nga hindi pa ulihi ang tanan. Di nang mga sinya sa cross nga alagyan, ang talagog talang-talang, nagtalang-talang, gatalang-talang, dapa-dapanaga padayon sa panglakaton. Kuy iining mga bugat nga dalalon sa imo paminsaron kag balat tiyagon. Kuy iining mga bugat nga dalalon, nga dalalon, nga dalalon. Dali na kay maimo ta sang bag-o nga kalibutan. Ako amigo gugma ang hari sa duta ray ng kalibayan. Ako nga abiyan magiliuso sa kausa sang kahilwayan. Peace be with you, man. Right. Yeah. All right. Feeling the blue. Yeah. Abyan ko kining tinion. Ipabutsyag sa katawhan ang imong nga nabalan, ang kaalam ngaging bungkal sa kadutaan. Ipalapnag mo sa hangin ang unod sining sugilanon, para mga tubang hangkat sang henerasyon. Tanga mga katawhan nagtuhaw sa kadutaan. Ibalik ta ang balanse sang kalibutan. Mahimo ta sang bag-o nga alagyan. Padulong sa promisa nga kadutaan. Ako lamigo, tugma ang hari sa duta, ray ng kalipayan. Ako niya abiyon, magiliusa sa kausa sang kahilwayan. Ang paghidait yara sa imo, kag yara man sa amo.